Just another pagan man.
Women.
In the mood every time, and it was time, yeah, for the Lone Wolf Show. Lone Wolf Show, everybody. And I have my co-hosts with me, the wonderful Munastera, coming all the way from Kansas, and my beautiful wife, Patricia, and Onyx Cat. And we have a very special guest with us, an esteemed author, Llewellyn author that is, who has been involved with some Green Ed historical magazine endeavors. I give you the lovely, the enchanting Cat Gina Cole, everybody.
Well, hello, and thank you for the lovely intro there, Harold.
Cat, how you been, man?
Well, busy, as you duly noted. I have, hanging out here on the West Coast in Oregon. Weather's still pretty mild, and enjoying the season.
So you're West Coast Pacific, if I remember. And this is I think the third time we've had you on the show, and I always love catching up with you and seeing what kind of things that you're into. And I think the last time that we interviewed, you had something going on online with, I think, Christian Day, Brian Kane, some like that. How'd that go for you?
It went very well. It was WitchCon. I presented at WitchCon, and it's kind of a teleconference event, and it went pretty smoothly, and got to join in a video after party kind of thing, spend a little bit more time with people and mingle a little bit, and that was always fun. That was a lot of fun. It's the first time I've done that, with Christian, and I've done those with Llewellyn at Llewellyn Cons, and a couple other places, and a variety of podcasts. Let's see. So I think since the last time we did stuff, I've been on the Witch with Wheels. She's did an interview with me, and that'll be coming out very soon. My interview in the recent edition of Witches and Pagans magazine, put out by Ann Newkirk Niven.
Yeah.
Right. There is in that edition an interview where Phaedra Bonowitz interviews me. And it is quite the little piece of interview. There's some interesting stuff in there.
Nice.
It's already out?
Yeah, it's for sale now.
Man, I got to say, Witches and Pagan magazine, that's coming from BBI Media. And I think BBI Media has 3 different magazines under the same BBI, thing. And they do wonderful work. They've been around a very long time.
Mm-hmm. Sage Woman is one of them. I'm not sure and Witches and Pagans, but I'm not sure what the third one is.
So that's kind of epic. Phaedra Bonowitz interviewed you. What kind of questions did she ask you?
Very personal ones.
I mean, were they exclusive for witches for exclusives for Witches and Pagan magazine?
Yes, it is. Because there's kind of a sort of unwritten thing. You have to kind of wait until it's been published for a little while before you start kind of spilling the beans. But it's kind of interesting in that not only is Phaedra my mentor, but she's one of my best friends. And so she got to dig into some things that she knows about that other people don't.
We have had Phaedra on the Lone Wolf Show, and she is very knowledgeable and very nice and very straightforward with a wealth of information, from, the history of paganism. And she's a treasure in her own right, for sure. For sure.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
So last year, if I recall, you put out a dark time of the year reading book list. Are you going to be doing that again?
Well, probably not. I did so much shadow work last year. My shadow work runs from Mavon to Imbolc, and I did a purging of things that were blocking me. And sometimes magic can run pretty deeply, and you have to be careful what you ask for. So in 2023 now, and I started this last September, I have had both eyes had cataract surgery. I've had a toe surgery. I got shingles.
Oh, wow.
And now I've had to have emergency gallbladder surgery, and it's all this, purging all this stuff, right? And sometimes you ask for one thing, but the universe has a different idea.
Yeah.
So,
Going back to the Witches in Pagan magazine, with that article that we were talking about, what issue is that going to be coming out? Is that like a winter solstice issue, or is it?
I think it was the fall Mabon issue.
Okay. So it's already printed. It's just available.
Yeah.
Yeah. So definitely check that out for our viewers, Witches in Pagan magazine for BBI Media, a great platform. It's been around for a very long time. Kat, what kind of writing projects have you been up to recently? Because I know that you are an esteemed writer. You're published with Llewellyn Worldwide Inc.
Yeah.
You have a book out, and
Yeah, that book.
Skills for Magic and Witchcraft. Is this your latest one?
Yeah, it's actually my first one. I am working on two more. I am working on a companion book to Psychic Skills that will be more magical practices than psychic practices. And I'm also working on a book of historical nature, is kind of the pagan history in America, modern America, like from the 60s forward. Because the um, Witchcraft Act wasn't really repealed until 1950 over in Europe, and then that came over to the United States, and that's when we kind of had our pagan renaissance here. And that was kind of a whole thing that kind of landed in my lap, oddly enough. So there may be one book to that. There may be a couple of books. I may go by decades to flush it all out and make it several books, or I may make it one book. I just don't know at this time.
How long have you worked for the Green Egg magazine?
Ooh, well, I started as a contributor to Green Egg probably in 2019, 2020. So it's been about 3 years, and I am now a staff coordinator. And I'm also still a contributor, and I'm the editor of the Green Egg Forum. And the Green Egg Forum was typically in print in the magazine. But now in the new age, it is on Facebook. So you can go to Facebook and search for the Green Egg Forum. And we really have a lot of wonderful topics that we have discussed, and people are still as opinionated as they ever were in the original Green Egg. And some of it gets challenged, and some of it is like, oh, hooey, and then the rest of it is like, I totally get that, And so there's a diversity that is shown in that group, and we managed to do it without really being nasty with each other.
Mm-hmm.
So newcomers and seekers and stuff like that who come to the group can actually see all kinds of sides of a particular topic in that group.
What are some topics that have been kind of discussed a lot?
The term baby witch, and cultural appropriation, traditional witchcraft versus Wicca. Oh my gosh, there's been so many. I mean, we've talked about books. We have talked about people ask all kinds of questions and pose things. There has even been discussion of people who are, say, over 50, curious about what's going on with those that are younger and vice versa. And all of that's been discussed and more.
Now, you mentioned the term baby witch, and I had a pretty good run with the term, I don't know, a year and a half ago, where I kind of was, I don't know, infatuated with it is, but I think just I wanted to educate on it, about the term. And I think that, as far as opinions go, I think that we're on the same page, is form of the term. But I would like to hear it, for our viewers. What's your impression or opinion on the term itself, baby witch?
It really doesn't matter what I think, because people are allowed to label themselves however they want, it, whether it pleases me or not. Personally though, I think that anyone who's a little bit more practiced gets a little testy about it because they think it's demeaning to them personally.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really not a dig towards anybody else. It is a personal choice if they're going to use that label or not. And it's about them, not about us.
That's a righteous way to talk about the whole thing. It took the TikTok world by storm, I think, 2 or 3 years ago, and it's just one of those things where now it's just, it's an evolutionary process. It looks like it's just where everything's constantly changing. The second thing that you talked about was cultural appropriation. What's your take on cultural appropriation, and how do we stay respectful within the whole concept of it?
Well, so I'm going to be doing another podcast soon. In fact, I think we tape this coming week. And I really can't spill the beans much about that, but it's going to be about cultural appropriation and a handful of other things. And there's a variety of people that, again, just like the baby witch thing, there's people on all sides of the topic.
Yeah.
And I recognize and validate everybody because that's how I am. But I think cultural appropriation in and of itself started as one thing. And as many things do, has morphed into blending into a diversity of things. And so it's no longer what it originally was. And in its current form can be a little more harmful and harder to understand than what it started out to be. And what it started out to be was, if you are not of the culture, and it is a marginalized culture, it's not okay for you to grab pieces of that culture and then go out and make money on it. Like the Native American Halloween costumes, or names of sports clubs, and things of that nature. And it has, again, like playing a game of telephone, has diverged into something I no longer really recognize as cultural appropriation. But to be honest, back in the day, when it's all created, as man is learning how to find his way in the world, everybody took a little bit of this. Oh, that works because it was for survival. Oh, that works, so I'm going to use that. And back then, yes, times are different and we're more knowledgeable and aware and sensitive to people's plights and oppression. But then there wasn't such a thing as much. And it wasn't a thing. They didn't care much. They had some closed practices, but that stuff was kind of kept secret, like the illusion mysteries, for example. That was in a particular temple, and some of the Dianic stuff was kept within a particular temple. Some of those things, some of the alchemist stuff, some of the Solomonic stuff. And of course, some of the African and Native American stuff was kind of into their particular culture. But when they had their gatherings and stuff together and or would travel and trade and whatnot, of course, things got spread around, like the use of sage and some other things, or the use of African beads for money. Today, all those things would be considered cultural appropriation when it did not start out that way.
So I really like that, the point of view with that, and with the cultural appropriation. It seems like kind of a hot topic in the pagan community at the moment. And one
we just spoke a little bit about that yesterday with Laura Gonzalez.
Mm-hmm. We certainly did. So it just seems like a topic of interest within the community, something to definitely look into. When it comes,
we're going to be looking into it when it comes to actual true appropriation, like I discussed, is how the Christians appropriated the pagans. And when we talk about appropriation, what it's become versus what it started, we all know that there was a lot that the Christians appropriated from us and why they did it. And so it's about, what are we going to do with that? Where does that really lay? And where does that play in the big picture of it all, really? But it's certainly interesting and challenging topic of discussion.
Monica, can you put Kat's book back up on the screen again? I want to revisit the book because I have a few questions about the book again.
Okay, Psychic Skills for Magic and Witchcraft.
So with the book, okay, where can we obtain a copy of this?
Oh, on Amazon or at Llewellyn.com, Barnes and Noble, Goodreads. I think that's the top ones right there. Or from my website, catginacole.com has those links.
I know that a lot, for me specifically, it seems like the craft or magic it's not really something that I am practicing anymore. I'm trying to live it. Do you believe in the concept of that?
Yeah, very much. It's a craft. We are crafting the craft by living it. It is a practice. It is, to some, a religion, but to me it is a practice. And it's about how we live our lives daily. It doesn't mean that we do something magical every single day, but in many ways we do without realizing it, because it is who and what we are. I went to a metaphysical fair today, and talked with some people and listened to some things. And certainly there was a magical and energetic exchange, but other days when I'm just sitting around the house and not doing much, maybe taking a Netflix day, there's not a lot magical I'm doing except for maybe my dreams at night or the food I cook, perhaps. But it's all about how you live. So there's simple ways of practicing, and then there is more complex ways of practicing, like a meditation practice that you do every day and other things.
What do you think about the new, it's kind of a off the wall question, but what do you think about the new, I don't even know if it's coined as like techno witchcraft, but like people that are using emojis to like infuse intent and, cast spells with like the internet and stuff like that. Like there's actually emoji spells out there right now where you do a certain arrangement of emojis and faces and, that are making up like sigils. Like in the old days, from like the Agrippa books, there was sigils that they would use from the, the planetary charts and all that. But nowadays they're using emojis. Do you think that the emojis and like the use of the internet to practice magic is just like another point of like evolution into what the craft is?
Yes, I think all people use modern people use what is modern and available to them in the time.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's what they did back then. They used what was available to them at the time. I mean, this is the first I'm hearing about this, so it's kind of
me
new.
too.
But I can see where, I know there's a lot of people that are going to be rolling their eyes or whatever at that, and scoffing at it. But to be honest, everyone used what was available to them at the time. That's it. That's
Right.
what correspondences are. And if
it might even just be a pattern where, the old school are just reflecting on what they did in comparison what the new school's doing, and the new school is just saying, well, it's cool, and the old school is saying, well, we did it this way. And it's like the same concept of like just music, because people who grew up in the 60s and 70s are like, Led Zeppelin rules, and then in the 90s as the generation. So yeah, I think it's kind of the same thing. I mean, at the end of the day, we're just human, right?
Yep.
So
The only thing that stays consistent is change.
That's exactly right. And we do, I mean, certainly as you pointed out, Harold, we were guilty of it in our time. We used what was modern and current to us.
Mm-hmm. Right. And Monica, you're absolutely right. The Hermetic law of vibration, nothing stands still. Everything's in a perpetual state of motion. Sid Ryder says, seems the same to me, like using sigils. Yeah, Sid, it really is. It's the same thing. And I think that even, like even when in the days of Agrippa and Levi and, all this old school, when they were drawing these sigils and all that stuff, they were just putting their intent into it. So I would assume that if somebody's typing a key and doing certain arrangement of symbols, they're just infusing their will into the intent and manifesting their own reality. And I think that's probably what it's all about. But definitely a good conversation to be had. Kat, what would be, I asked this a lot, and I may have even asked you before, but I think it's so important. What would be your advice to somebody on the path of paganism, of magic, of
Explore
the craft?
everything.
Explore everything.
Explore everything. Don't get stuck in one thing. It's like when you're a kid, you're putting everything in your mouth when you're a toddler, and you're exploring that world. Magic and witchcraft is the same thing. Don't get stuck. I mean, I'm eclectic. I was trained and taught by my family to be eclectic, to grab this, grab that, because in my training, the job of the witch is to be able to work with anything and everything. That includes the Christ God. That includes, Yahweh or Buddha or any other, Kali or Sekhmet, any of them.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, be like Captain Kirk, explore where no one has explored before. Yeah, because, and it's okay to have patron deities and different things like that if that's what you want to do, and you're only limited by your own choices.
Yeah.
Wisdom right there. I like that. You're only limited by your own choices. I like that one. That's a good one. What's the recent developments with the Green Egg magazine? I know that there's, from research, I saw that there has been, hiatus periods. What's the strength? Is it going to go full force? I mean, to me, the Green Egg magazine is an historic, platform where it's very historical. There was a lot of people in the 70s that were involved in that. It had the hiatus. I really want to see Green Egg succeed. Is the force there? Is the power there? Is the Green Egg something that's going to be around for a while.
Yes, but Monica had a question first. Let me come back to you, Harold. What was it, Monica?
Well, it had to do with the green egg, and in the future, will it ever go back into print, or is that a goal for it?
We're flirting with that. I think that we have possibly are very close to have chosen somebody that can drop copies for us if requested, kind of thing. But we haven't solidified that at this time. You see, right now, like Harold was alluding to, the green egg is just as alive and flexible as the earth itself and in magic itself. It comes, it goes, it transitions. You know, we have the older generation, we have a newer generation. We pretty much have a newer staff now. And I'm really excited at the direction that we're taking things. We are exploring and have not yet done making the green egg also into a blog form,
Nice.
and that it would come out more than quarterly. So it might be something that's available more often. And then the PDF would still come out quarterly. And we certainly have back issues that we are now cataloging and figuring out how many of those that we have available and whatnot. And we're exploring columns, and like we want an astrology section. We want to bring back the classifieds. That's another thing that we're doing that we hadn't done before. We're actually opening up this amazing idea that Oberon Zell had back in the day, and it worked better then, but we're reviving it, is exchange ads. You know, and it's like, you do an ad for us, we're going to place an ad for you. I mean, there's more details to it than that, but that's the basic idea, you know. And there's some other perks that will come with that, like many of the magazines do if you can make a contribution to their magazine. So there will be some of that, and just some different focuses, like on herbalism and some of the modern topics. I want to really, haven't figured out quite how I want to do it, but in the forum, I want to start bringing out some of the more modern topics that we need to talk about, because back in the 60s and 70s in the green egg, they were really talking about conservation and the earth and things like that. And certainly the comparison to the way things were back in the 60s for the earth is very different than what it is today. You know, and I think that as pagans, we should still be talking about that in our groups. So I want to kind of reinvigorate that in some fashion. And so, yeah, there's a new editor. Katrina Rasbold is the new editor. She's a very qualified and does a fantastic job for us. Isha is the one who does our layout. And of course, we have Oberon Zell and myself. And our producer is Judith Maxine Barrett. And those two, I mean, they're getting in their 80s there. They've been doing this from kind of day one, some of them. You know, and Sam Dickens is certainly still there. And see, the Green Egg magazine kind of originated. It's always been a pagan magazine, but it was always kind of to also promote the Church of All Worlds, which was created by Mr. Christie and Oberon, and reflected off of the Heinlein novel. And so there's always been a piece of Green Egg that's been about the Church of All Worlds, and we're going to put that in the category. But as always, we're still going to have, you know, contributors, you know, from all over, like Deborah D'Angelo, Thora from Washington. I'm sorry, I can't remember your name, Mulligan. Thora Mulligan June. I think. Pardon me, my friend, if I got that wrong. Butchered it. But we like to look at local talent, and we have greenegg.com, which you can look at and read up on everything that we're kind of doing. And it has a submission form, it has the back issues, listed there, and the current issue that was just put out, which was the fall edition, and the winter edition will be coming at the solstice in December. And so there's just stuff. And then we also have a Green Egg Magazine page on Facebook where we are going to start posting some of the contributors' articles.
Thanks.
And things of that nature, and giving the contributors a nod. So we're just diversifying and just breathing a little bit more life into it. Green Egg. It's been around since the 60s.
Well, okay. My question is, how long have you been an author, and what was the name of your first book that you ever wrote?
I have been a published author for 2 years, and the first book I ever wrote was Psychic Skills for Magic and Witchcraft. I did publish a piece, contribute a piece in Pagan Portal Books by Namun Brown through Moon Books in 2015, and that's it. So far, but I have articles, like I said, in Witches in Pagan, the Green Egg, the Metaphysical Times, the House of Twigs, and a number of other things.
I think, Patricia, didn't you work with the Metaphysical Times for a little while?
Yeah, I did. I did for a little while, and then we kind of all veered into our own little paths there. But
is the Metaphysical Times still operational? Do they still have? They still do. Oh.
Yeah.
Excellent. That's interesting.
Monica, you had a question?
Yes. So are you planning on attending festivals that we can come meet and learn from Kat Gina Cole next year?
Any in-person, I had withdrawn from any in-person events for the last 18 months or so because my husband had fallen ill, and he is now stabilized, and I am looking forward to revitalizing and re-emerging, so to speak, getting out into my pagan community to the north in Eugene, and doing more out here in the Rogue Valley around Medford, Oregon, and things of that nature. As far as getting to festivals back east, that's probably not going to happen. All my stuff will probably be here on the West Coast. But I certainly will be doing videos. I teach via Zoom. So if anybody's interested in classes, there's a section that on my website. And I will be... I am in talks with a witch shop in Grants Pass, not far from here, about doing events as well.
So if our viewers go to www.katginacole.com, there's information on where they can attend your workshops on Zoom.
Yes.
What type of curriculum are you teaching and guiding folks on your class?
Well, I do a whole section on shadow work. The first three chapters of my book, Psychic Skills for Magic and Witchcraft, talks about self-tape, social conditioning, and things like that. But it's actually kind of the blueprint for shadow work. And I'm also a retired master's of social work. And so I kind of do an interview with people and listen to them, and we kind of just pick a spot to start. And those, there's all still just $20 a session, however long that session runs or class runs. because I want it to be affordable for people. And so with shadow work, you can just, it's not like, hey, it's 3 classes and we're done. Same with some of the psychic skills. A couple of those are like, yeah, okay, we're going to do a 4-week course, but if you want to do more, there's more available. I have 8 students that have been with me for 18 months going through the entire book.
So you're using the published works from Llewellyn as part of like the curriculum?
Oh, definitely. It even started as a 3-level curriculum before it became a book.
That's really cool. That's always a great foundation teaching tool to have. You said that you were in the works of writing 2 more books, and I'm curious of what the topics are going to be about, without revealing too much about it. But I'd love to hear what you will to share.
So one of the books, like I said, is going to be about American pagan history from the 60s to about the 80s, maybe the early 90s. And I don't know if that's going to be 1 or 2 books or 3 books. I don't know if I'll do it by decade or not, but how that came about was had convinced Oberon Zell to come down from Washington State, where he was living at the time, to the Eugene Pagan, pagan festival there, and pagan pride, excuse me. And while we were there, a gal saw Oberon and recognized him, and wanted to donate back to him all of the magazines and pamphlets that her partner had collected over a period of time in her life, who was now passed. So when she came back, Oberon was up presenting, and I was at the booth, and there were boxes on boxes. And I knew at the time that Oberon was in the middle of moving. So they all went in my van and came home with me. A couple boxes went with him, but most of it came home with me. And my husband didn't see me for the next 2 months. I was so buried. And some of it was like when I picked up the newsletter written by Doreen Valiente's hand from 1964, I'm like trembling. I was like, oh my God. Or the works that Dr. Leo Martello typed on his own typewriter. And I was just like, holy mothers, and of course, a vast volume of the Green Egg magazine itself, back issues of that. And then even the Gnostica newspaper that Llewellyn put out themselves. And the bulk of that stuff eventually went to the Buckland Museum of Witchcraft in Ohio, because I felt everybody deserved to see it. It's not just for one person. But much of that text, that body of text, is a lot of what I will be using as a resource to write this book, as well as contributions from those people that are still around. I want to know what it was like for them. Like Selena Fox. I mean, she had to fight the courts to get our symbols on our gravestones. And I want to know a little more about, can you imagine? Would we have that much determination for a cause these days to do that, to whip up people to help us, And Oberon Zell starting a magazine in a pagan movement because he wouldn't take no for an answer, and all the things that kind of went on behind the scenes and what that was like. I don't want it to be just a stuffy history book. I don't want that. And so there's going to be contributions from Lori Bruno, who worked with Dr. Martello, and Carrie Weisner, and of course Oberon Zell, and Selena, and a handful of other people in that book. So there'll be contributions as well. And so that's what that part will be like. And the other book is about my family magic and how I was trained. And it will be the companion to Psychic Skills. And it will focus more on the rituals and the actual magic how we use psychism in magic and things of that nature.
Do you have a date of when they're expected to be out? No.
Nope. They are just kind of flowing in the universe right now.
Yeah.
What's a quick exercise that people can use to develop and unlock their own psychic ability, you think?
Meditation and journaling. You know, people will be like, come on, but it's true. You know, I mean, like my book, Psychic Skills, you know, that's the basic thing. And the real basic one that is threaded through everything is pause, sense, and scan. So you pause and you're checking, you're just calming yourself, you know, getting rid of stuff so you can listen and clearing the way to sense. And then you sense, what is it? What am I hearing? What am I getting? You know, and then you scan. It's like, where is it? What is that? Hone in on it, right? Pause, sense, and scan. It sounds very, very simple, but it's actually very vast. You know, it's that moment that we stop. And it was hard to write about that because it's like breathing. We all do it without really realizing that we do it, you know, but to bring that out and say, here, let's pay a little bit more attention to that. Let's make it a tool with intention, you know, and it really makes a big difference. And so journaling about pausing and about sensing and about scanning, it makes it real. It's tangible. You can say, yes, I did not imagine that. You know, that was real. And paying attention to your dreams and journaling about your dreams, because there's all kinds of different dreams. There are spiritual dreams, there's psychic dreams, there's regular dreams, and of course nightmares, you know. But those are all, there's very, very, if you start paying attention and use your awareness, you sit down and you meditate on that dream and you start asking yourself, what felt different? What was different with this one and that one? And after a while, when you journal that out and you parse that out, you can be able to tell. And how it's different from astral travel. Once you get that, then you have those subtle differences, you have a lot more control in what you're doing. You have a lot more oomph to the things that you want to do and much more focus.
What do you think is the best time to meditate and the best place to meditate?
Whatever works for you. Honestly, a lot of people think that meditation is sitting down with legs crossed and a blank mind. Not so. The important part about meditation is getting into an altered space, intentionally suspending your consciousness and moving it to an altered place. That's the goal of meditation. And that's a place of magic. That's a place of intuition. That's why we meditate and use it as a tool.
What's your favorite way to meditate?
Driving.
Yeah, that's one of mine too. That's the way it came naturally at first.
And a lot of people are ADHD or neurodiverse, you know, and so sitting still is not something that can necessarily work for them. I have to sometimes, if I want to sit still, I have to sometimes use a sleep mask to shut everything out, you know, and or have like a rabbit fur in my fingers for tactile, you know, so that it's just enough of a distraction that I can sit still for the most part and focus, you know. So it's a wide variety. Some like guided meditation, some do them on their own. Whatever works to get you to that theta state is the point.
That's cool. Patricia, how do you meditate?
How I meditate?
Yeah.
Animals. Like just being around animals, I can meditate good. being outside in nature is a good way that I meditate.
Being around animals is a form of meditation. Kat, do you think that, like, when I write music or like write lyrics and like poetry stuff, do you think that's like a form of meditation too?
Yes, if it alters your, if you're in an altered state from regular consciousness, yes.
Creator's trance.
Yes.
Meditation.
Mm-hmm.
I like it.
Again, it's a lot of taking what we do every day that's like breathing and what's mundane and making it a magical skill and practice. That's how we craft our craft to tailor it to us.
Well, Kat, thank you so much for coming on the Lone Wolf Show once again. Monica, can you put a book up on the screen one more time?
Absolutely.
And make sure our viewers can check out this book
Skills for Magic and Witchcraft.
right on Amazon. And also make sure you check out greeneggmagazine.com with the latest developments in that historical magazine. And we look forward to some new books coming from the Llewellyn author that has been established in the writing community with a fine trajectory ahead of her. Thank you again for coming on the Lone Wolf Show. You guys have any other further questions for Kat before we cap?
I think
Just a comment. Thank you so much for joining us. It's always a pleasure. And I always learn something from you when we have these interviews or speak. So thank you.
Well, thank you.
And for,
it's been a pleasure. And good evening to everyone out in the audience. Blessings to all.
blessings to all.
Good night.
Right.